Hello folks, and welcome back to my new video booth. Here we are to do a lovely little review on some new mouthpieces from 10M Fan. Now, this mouthpiece range is well known as one of the sort of heavyweights in terms of serious, full-bodied, boutique-y style mouthpieces. But the reason for this video today is that I want to bring to you the second generation 10M Fan mouthpieces, as there's been a fair bit of development in the way that these mouthpieces are now made. So let me explain. In fact, let me first of all point out how you know the difference is between a first generation mouthpiece and a second generation mouthpiece, if you like. So these little fellas here have a gold insignia as opposed to the previous white one. They're always well known for this sort of triple band that you get here around the base of the mouthpiece and then the writing up the back here. But now they have this gold insignia which indicates Generation 2 10M Fan mouthpieces. And I've got three with me today, three of the key ones, the Classic, the Robusto and the Showtime. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a demonstration on each of them and then just give you my sort of immediate sort of feedback and analysis of how they're playing and what the feeling is to me as a player. And just before I get into that, just to point out some of the changes that have occurred with the Generation 2 mouthpieces. So Mark Sepenick, the brains behind the Mouthpiece brand, has now appointed a new master craftsman that he absolutely loves and just completely sings the praises of, talking about the genius stuff he can do with mouthpiece making. One of the things he's altered in comparison to the previous models is he's changed the facing curve, so the length of it. He's also made some adjustments to the thickness of the tip rail and the side rails. Previously they had a certain kind of unwanted buzz, as I believe Mark described the sound. And just by changing this tip rail to something that's slightly thicker, it's actually just got rid of that. I mean, they always had this lovely full-bodied sound. I was always a big fan of them, no pun intended. But they've just got better, if you ask me. So all these little changes that they've done has really just squeezed out the juice of these mouthpieces, shall we say. So I'm going to give them a run right now. I've already got this guy set up with the Classic model, so let's give this one a blast. So for me, immediately it's a really fat, full-bodied sound, which I mentioned in my intro there. That characteristic was always present in the previous models, but as I said, there's just a little bit more sweetness and juice and kind of feeling of control that you get with these mouthpieces. So this is called the Classic, and I think that describes the sound very well, because for me it's a very traditional kind of tenor sax sound, a very classic sound, if you like. It's not going particularly in one direction or another, but overall it does have this dark, heavy sort of sound that really, for me, it's where the sort of character is in the tenor sax. People are often looking for that sort of depth and darkness in sound, really, to match with the natural deep qualities, pitch-wise, of the tenor sax. So that's a lovely starting point, and this is, tip-wise, I should just tell you, a 7-star. For me, that's the sort of sweet spot, tip opening wise, just between a 7-star straight and an 8, and it really hits the mark nicely for me. So I'm just going to change over now to the next one. So I'm going to now move on to the Robusto, which in theory should give me a little bit more of an impactful sound. I would say with the the classic, just whilst I'm setting up here. The sound is absolutely lovely, but it wouldn't necessarily kind of cut it beyond a standard sort of jazz setup, perhaps a jazz quartet or something like that. I don't think it would necessarily work in a sort of a soul band or something like that. It sounds great just by itself when there's no amplified instruments behind you, kind of getting in the way and blocking all the frequencies. You tend to need a little bit more edge when you're in those setups. And I suspect that this Robusto might give me that. Yeah, you can hear it straight away there. And it also does the quiet thing very nicely. So another great mouthpiece, big in volume, lots of body to the sound, but it's just got a little bit more silveriness and sort of edge on the top. So I think that would work in more of a sort of soul band kind of setup or anything like that. I'm now going to move on to what I believe might be my personal favourite. It certainly was when I tested it before, and that is the Showtime. Again, a 7-star style. These are all 7-star styles, so great for comparison purposes there. So I'm just using a plain Rovno ligature. I'm sure you could fancy that up a bit and put something metal on it to get a little bit more travel in the sound, if you want to do that. But for the purposes of just getting the basic playing characteristics of each mouthpiece, the Rovno Dark is fine. So I played on that one for the longest because I feel that I can do more with this mouthpiece. I mean, they're all very similar, as you might hear, but I just saved this one for last just because for me, I get the balance of all of the elements that I'm looking for. So that nice classic warm tenor sax kind of sound, and then a little bit of shine to it without having an edge to it. So it's a very sort of thick core sound that when you start to really push the air through it, it doesn't go edgy, it just retains this, retains the core, but it has a sort of thick brightness to it, shall we say. And that's true throughout the range. So whether you're trying to really pump out the lower notes or the top notes, it has that sort of projection there. So I think this one's a very flexible mouthpiece. It could work in sort of more functiony soul bands, funk bands, that kind of setting, as well as the more traditional jazz lineup sort of settings. So I'm going to finish with this one here, the Showtime. The others played great as well. They all play extra great now that they've done these new tweaks to the 10M fan range, and they've got this new maker. So I'm really excited about these mouthpieces, and I thoroughly recommend that you come down to our London store and try them out. Thank you.